Kia ora, and welcome to Constellations and All That. I'm your host, Tracy Cartwright, and together we will be exploring the world of family constellations with facilitators and clients from around the world, looking at different perspectives and experiences in the work, having a cup of tea and just chatting with some friends around their experiences in constellations. We'd love for you to join us. I hope that you enjoy this series as much as I have loved making it. Kia ora, everyone, and welcome to Constellations and All That. Today, I had the pleasure of sitting here with a beautiful cup of cacao and chatting with my friend, Kristina Dryža. Welcome, Kristina.
Welcome from, I'm in Adelaide, so I send really warm greetings and warm weather wherever people are in the world at the moment.
Oh, it's so good to have you here. And you're not often in Adelaide, are you?
That's
Because
correct, yeah. I'm mostly in the Northern Hemisphere.
yeah, beautiful. I'm going to invite you to please share a little bit about yourself so that the listeners and the viewers have a taste of who you are and
Oh yeah, myself. Yeah, I would say that I'm a lover of having a different perspective or a different way of interpreting life. And the
mm,
lens that I really like to use is the lens of archetypes and mythology. So I'm really interested in helping people develop an archetypal eye or a mythical consciousness or symbolic sight or more poetic imagination. And just really simply what that I would say is that how to bring a greater depth or meaning to life through, instead of just interpreting events as just pure facts, that they might be part of a bigger of a larger story, part of a larger story.
it's fascinating. That is so. Can you give us a little example of that?
Yeah, I mean, sure. If we just even say, because people might say in our language, and if people are interested in this, I did a TEDx on why archetypes and mythology matter even more so today, because when we hear the word myth, we might hear it as like 10 health busting myths, like, or the 10 myths in dating. Like, so we've equated myth to be a lie when actually
Yeah.
it's almost the most truest thing that actually exists. So for me, myths are really meaningful stories that just help us understand who we are and how we live. It's that almost the ancient storehouse, warehouse, really, of what it means to be human. And I find these myths can be really maps of meaning that can usually help us through transformation or difficult times. And I think they give us permission to see pain as meaningful and not pathological. That's a really, really big part. So if you think of like a story, like we've all had times when the rug got pulled out from underneath us, right?
Yeah.
But it's not that in a way it's being done to us. If we can sometimes say that rug pulling, universal rug pulling experience where we have, whether it's a betrayal or a divorce or an illness or something like that, it's almost in a sense that experience occurs whenever certainty collapses. And then it
Mm.
becomes an invitation then, like, how do I develop my relationship with the unknown? And almost in a way, the receptivity to the unknown. So it was almost either I thought I'd have this type of future or I'd be here or XYZ or something like that. That almost in a sense that so much when we look at, say, sacrifice that occurs in these descent processes, it's more about reordering value. And so it's another way that we can see what we value and almost in a sense, the value of ourselves through going through an experience that really strips us bare, that anything that's on the periphery just kind of doesn't exist. There's a rawness and a realness, and it's really more about the directness of the experience, not the narrative or the would have, could have, should have that goes around it. And if I
Because
could
we can
just
get
say,
we can get really stuck in that, can't we? Like it's like, oh,
hugely. And people might just be saying, okay, well, what's an archetype, right? Like, just to know what's an archetype. It's just like a pattern. If you just think, when I mention the word archetype, just substitute it for pattern. They're just ancient patterns that shape human emotion and behavior and imagination. and they're just recurring energies. So being
Mm.
lost in the forest, that's an archetype. Seeing someone in their authority, it might be a queen, or it kind of might be a leader, or it might be like a shaman or a trickster. So almost in a sense, not stereotypes, but actually patterns that contain both a shadow and a light. We could say, some people might even say whether it's a negative or a positive, or a challenge or a grace, or destructive or constructive. But just recognizing that, like Carl Jung said, you can either be good or whole, but not both. And so it's the wholeness, right? Where there's also the shadow experience as much as the light.
Yeah. Wow. I'm going to come back to just sharing a little bit more about you because
Mm,
you're a writer.
mm, yeah,
What
yeah.
else? What else have you got on
Oh
your
yeah, gosh.
toolkit?
Okay, so yeah, so I guess people go, well, how do you get into something like this? So I would say from a very young age, I was really fascinated by, is this fate or is this destiny? Is this free will? Do we have free will, or is everything predetermined? Because I was trying to work out in my own life, is it like, where's my, do I have choice, or is it all just written out and I just have to live into it? And that was, that led me to be having a career of a futurist. But it really came out of, in my anthropology course at university, we had one semester on indigenous cosmology, where they were able to see all time as one,
Mm,
past,
mm,
present, and future as one, and cyclical, instead of our linear past, present, and future. And that was where I guess, started some of these ideas of more, like, at the world at the moment, if we look, the world is very binary. It's very, like, we're both at extreme ends of the poles, whether it's political or whatever it actually is. So it's not this either the arts or the sciences. It's like both the arts and the sciences. And I think through that exploration of a different relationship to time, and I always say, I never trust anyone that talks about the future that doesn't reference the patterns of the collective unconscious or the patterns in nature. It's like, that's
mm.
like just a huge part of my work. It was that I saw that it wasn't either fate or destiny, that it was both fate and destiny. And I
Yeah.
think all of us have had experiences where that accident or meeting that person was written in the stars. There was no way we were going to avoid it. And there's other experiences where it's actually, oh, I do have my hand on the wheel, right? I do have
Yeah.
agency here. But what we so often do is, where we have agency, we say we don't. And I'd say that's climate change is a really big one at the moment. And where it's written and we have no involvement, we're trying to get our sticky hands in it. So someone that leaves us, no, well, no, this is not the way it should be. Got to get them back, or to try to change something, instead of actually, some things in life we never solve, we never fix. It's just a matter of, how do I maybe carry it more elegantly and
Mm.
see it as a necessity of something that I had to experience. So those things, I think, were always in the background of my mind, and obviously, which led to Constellations, which is, my family escaped the Second World War. They were from Lithuania. My parents were born in the refugee camps in Germany, and then came out to Australia. So there was almost that whole thing of the what if. And I've always had those
Mm.
sliding doors. If the war didn't happen, if they fled to America and not to Australia, who would all those kind of things.
Yeah. 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 The reality of that, isn't it? And I think, I mean, obviously for you, that was very present in you from a young age. And for some of us, it's like, well, some people never get to this point where they're thinking this,
Yeah,
because that's not their pathway. But
yeah,
for some of us, it's been a little bit later in life when we were going, oh yeah, gosh, what would have happened? Who would I have been if my grandmother hadn't come out on that boat? You know,
yeah,
who would I have been if, gosh, yeah, my great
yeah,
great ancestors weren't so keen to explore the world.
yeah. And I think it also helps in the sense of, if we imagine like a system as a vacuum cleaner and an individual as a speck of dust, like the vacuum cleaner will always win, the system wins, right? And I think in our culture at the moment, so many issues are systemic, but the burden is placed on the individual.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much going on around me right now at this moment in time.
And
Yeah.
I
And I
find,
think the other part of it also is if one thing would could be different, would like everything then kind of be different. And I find that many people, so often we struggle to be in the unknown. I'm really talking, referencing myself here and in the present moment because it just looks like another trauma is going to come down the track. So in that hyper vigilant presentness, but not almost in a sense if you know I think the thing that I really took away from family constellations a lot was this that blind loyalty where say, and this was what happened in Lithuania, was people were deported to Siberia. And say that happened to your grandfather, who was literally in a gulag and in a prison, that what a great grandchild or a grandchild might do is, create a similar prison in their own mind, but a depression, but a prison none the same, to say, see, grandfather, I'm just like you, I belong. And I see that so often that giving away, a false sense of, our authenticity for this false sense of belonging.
yeah,
And I think it made sense of a lot of behaviors of mine that actually came out of these having to flee a war zone, really.
wow, yeah, I can only imagine. Yeah. How did Constellations find you?
Mhm. Yeah. I would say it would be around 15 years or so ago. I was in Bali, actually more on a work project, and I was speaking to someone. It was about a future slash trends kind of project. And I didn't really, I think I was saying this, I've got this general malay around me, and I hadn't, I just was really unhappy and unsatisfied with where I was in life. And I didn't actually even mention anything to my family. And this is a person I just like met once. And they said, I did this thing called Family Constellations. And the strangest thing, and he explained a little bit of it where when you first hear it, you're just kind of like, this sounds like that drama, role playing, acting, like whatever.
The
But what he,
psychodrama sounds like
yeah.
psychodrama.
And I'm
Mm.
like, huh? Like, what's this all about? But just that he said that what actually happened in the room, it then actually then mirrored what happened with his actual father. And so it was this, and I understood by that stage also the holographic nature of the world, right? Where it's like what can happen, the fact that
Yeah,
it was being reflected, it happened in the physical, but then in one room, but then it also happened in another time and space. And so something was like, oh, and I think part of it was the person said, I never thought that I could get to either it was this level of peace or to have this relationship with my father. And I was like, do you know, like I think that so often we try to convince people about things, but if you're just the embodiment of the truth of your experience, people are like, what do you want? Like, get me some of that. Like, what do you like, because it's just coming out of them. And I could just see that he had found some sense of really deep sense of and a peace, like just this real it is as it is, this isness. And I could
yeah,
never get in my life to that isness. I was always frustrated. And I would say in some senses, I think human design also helps in that to be able to say, like being a manifesting generator, my not self. I know when I'm not myself, when I'm frustrated, and I would say I'm frustrated a lot of the time. And to be in my more authentic self, it's to feel satisfied and to realize how rarely I felt that because I was either disappointed or, whatever things that come under the banner of frustration. And so when I finally then did a constellation, it's almost in a sense, as people would know that come from refugee families, the first generation just gets on with it. It
mm,
has to kind of block out everything that kind of happened. It's like my grandparents came, they didn't speak English, it's like it's a new kind of world. It's like, why would I refer back to the horrors of Europe? I have to make this new life kind of here. And so it was not really kind of spoken about. It was just, I didn't even know quite a lot of it. And so that was where the unraveling started. And I would say it then kind of merged with my work with archetypes that I knew. So often I was very trapped in the victim mindset.
mm.
And look, we've all had experiences of being victimized many times over. The issue is, though, when you make it your identity. And
Yeah,
what I found, the I amness, I am that. And I find as Lithuania had done that as well, because it'd been occupied by both Nazi Germany and Stalinist Russia. And so its
Mm,
identity had really become crystallized in being the victim here.
yeah.
And for how much people would speak to me about trying to enact agency in me or change my thoughts, also would say I was struggling with. Didn't know I was neurodivergent. That got diagnosed later, but obsessive thoughts. So when people were saying, "Don't think like that," that's really victim or negative or whatever, my thoughts were thinking me, and it was hell. Like I was literally, my mind was a living hell.
Wow. Yeah. So how did you cope with that? What did you do what did you do with that?
I took it all on myself. There must be something wrong with me. Like,
Mm,
why, and I think we kind of say, why can't I be happy? I've got a roof over my head. I've always freelanced, so it's been feast or famines, but there's been
mm.
like this the possibility to have income, I should say. And I think a lot of it, again, what systemically helps is how can I enjoy my life when my ancestors struggled so much?
It's a
How
big
dare
one.
I?
It's a big one, isn't it?
Mm.
And there's so many people that are in that, but they don't have, that penny
Mm.
hasn't dropped for them. So I'm hoping that this will drop for many who listen to this.
Because so often you might go see a psychologist or a psychotherapist, it will just be about you, like either cognitively trying to reframe a thought or things like that. But when inherently you don't believe you deserve life because so many perished for you to have one, and you're not living up to your potential. And I think that's the other thing is family systems with a lot of trauma have so much unlived potential in them.
Mm,
But the fact is that when we feel ourselves we're not living up to our, potential, the self-flagellation is just so extreme that it can lead to suicidal ideation and to the depths, really.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now you were telling me, I'm just jumping back to
Mm.
you met Constellations in Bali. So that was the
Oh, so then
conversation. Did you have a
I came and did
constellation?
my first one in Adelaide with Susan Ultraga,
Oh, very
and
good.
that was like wow. And again, like most people would say, when you get the first chance to be a rep, how do I be a rep? Like, am I going to do this right and all the rest of it? And I just remember I had to represent someone's father, and all of a sudden said, I need to stand by the door and I feel like I need to go get a drink. And they were like, oh, yeah, yeah, my dad left the house. He was an alcoholic. He left us. I know that was the first bit where I was like, where did that like instant knowing come from?
Mm,
I would say that when I was first repping, I was still not so much in my head, but I wanted them to analyze as I was going. And while now, and again, I think that so many of us were so disconnected from our bodies. It's almost you can see yourself battling, is this right? Is this not? But it's almost like what's the felt sense instead of, what are you thinking or how you, but the feeling, the felt sense of it. Because I think in trauma, almost in a sense, the heart and the head get disconnected. And I was really, and if I have any words of wisdom, but hopefully this will reach someone out there, which is again, because of the immigrant family background, we got raised that knowledge is power. So, both my brother and I were then and did postgraduate degrees and further study because knowledge is power. So the Nazis might invade it again, or the Russians might, but we have our knowledge. That's
mm,
not power. It's applied knowledge is
yeah.
power. It's that application, and it's the a bit of how is this now lived. And I think that's the part that I'm really interested in is more people's how do we embody either new changes or new awarenesses? And that usually has to come from an identity shift because in a way within an identity there is language, there is posture, there's all these other things that are with it. It can't just be this cerebral intellectual knowing. That's like almost like shelf knowledge. It's almost like how do I know this at a cellular level? And then because the body knows it, then almost in a sense, I've actually become a different person because my cells are completely different.
I get that. That's where I'm going at the moment, transforming and letting go of, because there's things that are rising up. And yeah, and it's acknowledging that, like, and not dropping back into the victim side of it, or and just being aware and seeing it, what it is, and honoring the state, that process of transformation as well for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was just going to say, being in that state, and for many of us, and all of us probably,
Mm.
it's been a safe place. Hasn't always been healthy, but it's been a safe place. And so now, so when we choose to to do something different, we are stepping into that again, back to your unknown, right?
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah. And there's no safety there. And most of us, we're in survival. And there's so
Mm.
much now more work, obviously, about the role of the nervous system. So I would say a big piece, I would say I still had quite a strong victim complex until even last year. It was actually around the nervous system in the sense of always being in a fight or flight
Yes.
mode continuously, that things began to kind of change. And like what you were saying with awareness, sometimes awareness, we have to carry the awareness of something, and only 10 years later will it kind of drop in. While some we get that awareness, and then the next day there's an action or a different change because we could put that awareness into motion. So
Mm.
it's interesting how some things in our lives, we, as I said, it's just carrying them, but how do we do it elegantly? Because I don't think awareness on its own leads to change or transformation like instantly, just like that.
No, and that's, yeah, you saying that because I've been really aware that I have been going into freeze.
Yeah.
I get a lot done and I do a lot of things, but then there's this times when I go into freeze and I'm aware that I'm
Yeah.
repeating a pattern that I saw in my mother and that I observed in my grandmother as well. In fact, today I had a giggle at myself because I was like lounging on the couch the exact same way that my grandmother would
Oh
in
yeah,
the
yeah.
same position. And I was like, okay, so there's something in this. And then it's that, oh, and for a long time I would become aware of things, but I wouldn't act upon it.
Hmm.
Something
Hmm.
shifted. I don't know what shifted. And
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
yeah.
I'm just honoring the fact that I'm now able to start to act upon it.
Yes, yeah, and in the present moment.
Yes, in the present moment, rather than sitting there going, I
Would have,
should
could
go
have,
and
should have.
hop on that little trampoline and do some bouncing because it'll be really good for my lymphatics
Yeah.
as I'm lying there just doing nothing
Yeah.
and then beating myself up because I don't do that. So it's now I'm like, oh, I could just go and do 2 minutes on that and then that'll move something and then I could do another 2 minutes
Yeah.
later.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
whatever that is has shifted, but it's coming into that awareness and in it, I think there are layers of I think try to keep the humanness out of it a little bit of the
Mm,
story, and just be in that present.
yeah. Yeah. Because I always say archetypes or patterns, they're neutral. It's just either are they activated or they're deactivated, right? So it's almost there. We always can, like a good example, I would say it was my grandmother. We would go to a restaurant, and back in the day, there was this place called Sizzler, and they had this like garlic bread kind of thing. It came for free, kind of. Anyway, it was the bread was there, and if it wasn't eaten, out would like the napkin, and it would be rolled up, and it would be put into kind of the handbag. And I'm almost the same way. And you just find yourself like, do I really need to take this sugar from the cafe or in a hotel? Do I really need like these freeze dried? You do because there's still that fear. I don't know where my next meal is coming from. And in a way, you can actually feel that that energy activated, which is, I think it's a fine line between, you don't want to be wasteful with food, but for me, it would almost kind of be, it's that fear of, I don't know when my next meal will kind of be coming from, which is like why, in a way, you have to eat everything on your plate, or if there's anything like, oh my God, if people just put food in the bin, that's fine to eat. I just almost just die inside. Like I can't. It's really true. So because it's still, and I think that so many of us are in that, and when we're in survival, it's like past habituated automatic patterns. So the first thing is to recognize those, and then again, you'll be triggered quite a lot, but it's until then, once in the moment, you go, choice exists. And I think, like you said, like, how did I get into this? I didn't feel I could choose. I felt like I wanted something, And a lot of clients have come to me. I do like archetypal readings for people. And they would say, Kristina, I know better, but why do I have the inability to do better? And that is what I kept feeling like. I know how to eat healthy. I know how to save money. Why can't I seem to do any of that? And then why am I so in the self-sabotage mode? And I ended up studying archetypes with Carolyn Mason. It really helped me because she has four archetypes, which she calls the survival archetypes. And that's the child, the victim, the saboteur, and the prostitute. Not the person on the street corner, but how we sell ourselves for safety and security and survival in the world. And so those four patterns, they're in a way, they're always kind of operating in us. And
Mm.
again, I could just see, and obviously by the name being the survival, because it's literally, it does feel so many things were life and death. And if I can just say another example, just to really ground it in how bad it was for me, I would say go to a restaurant and should I have a coffee or a latte? That was life or death. And if I made the wrong choice because it didn't taste that great, people would go, well, order another one or come back another time. I couldn't see any of that. And I think that was like linked with my grandparents, like, should we stay in Lithuania or should we go? That every decision started having this life and death component within. It doesn't matter, there's enough excess. We can get another coffee if you make a mistake. I'm doing inverted commas, whoever's listening. Yeah, online, on the radio.
Yeah, yeah. And is that still something that you face, or has that shifted for you?
I would say, like all things, it's everything comes in a scale, and I would say it's like toned down. But I think that is again something that is part of my turning my fate into my destiny, where it would be that it's there, but I just don't live from that space anymore. But it is
Mm.
still there. And I think that's the thing with so much healing now, it's all about getting rid of and fixing and cutting out and things like that. And it's actually, how do we make it more whole? It's like, if a nail gets like hammered into, a tree, it's not about ripping out the nail, but a branch goes around it. Or the kintsugi, like you make pottery with the gold and make it even more beautiful. And I think that it's almost the ability to allow it to be there.
Well, it's there, it's happened, and you can't change the fact that it's happened,
Yeah. But
but
I
it's
feel what I could, Tracy. That's a really interesting thing. That's why I thought I'd say 4 decades of my life, I would replay the past, like every scenario. So if I turned left instead of right, said this instead of that, arrived 1 minute earlier, 1 minute later, I was in this sliding doors, this like two realities. And I think that there's so many different levels of healing because there's so much, because for me it was, if only this didn't happen in the past, my present would be different. But then I was still never present because I was still trying to change the past. And it's so different when to be able to, can I actually be in the moment without actually thinking about something, but within actually my five physical senses in the moment, engaging in the moment.
beautiful, beautiful. Oh, I wrote something down here. No, I didn't write it down. I was going to ask. Oh, yeah, I did. Find my piece of paper. Remember I said I had two questions, and the other one was for you, how has Constellations touched your family system? If there's anything in that question that you'd like to answer.
Yeah, gosh, quite so much. I for those of you like that are in Australia, you might know this, but when I was the age to go to school, it wasn't cool to be bilingual. Like now it's cool to speak another language and be from another culture. And in Australia, you become popular through playing sport. And I couldn't play sport on the Saturdays I went to school because I had to go to a Lithuanian Saturday school and learn grammar and do folk dancing and Lithuanian scouts. So I became like a pariah almost in a sense of that high schoolness. And that in a way, that outsider and never feeling like I belonged with the cool kids um, was the very thing that made me be really good at my career because being on the fringes, you're not always exposed to mainstream sources, right?
Mm.
And I think what I find now is so many people that were, say, isolated in schooling, like when we went to school, you just really had to suffer through it alone. Well, now, I don't know, you might have an interest in skateboarding, and you find someone in Stockholm also that has a skateboarding or a music, like it's different. But that if you're on those fringes now, more people, we find each other, but we're still so hurt by that experience of high school, which is um the that that almost like that inability to participate. Um and now it's almost like on being on the fringes, people, we have almost in a way the medicine that the mainstream need, but we're still so hurt from those feelings of being isolated or ostracized or exiled, because being exiled is almost like worse than death. And so I could understand in my family why it was so important to try to belong to what the Lithuanian community in Adelaide was doing and things like that, because exile was worse than death. So this, I could understand why we would contort ourselves into all these different shapes just to belong. Like
Yeah.
super busy, but oh yeah, someone says they can make 5 cakes and volunteer here and do all of this and not value their own time and self-sacrifice to the point of burnout. Um, and I would also say in my shifted my relationship with my father, who had died before I learned about, and just understood like I would never, his distance that I took painfully, that I can now
Mm,
see in a constellation, was not distance. And I had not, my father also went to the Vietnam, so that the horrors that they have seen. And I think part of that is, yeah, as you were saying, it's the honoring, but recognizing the fate of each individual soul and the fate of the
yeah.
family. And I think also, I think some of us, we might have more, I call these soul contracts more like bleed throughs, where we're very entwined with the culture of the time. It's not like, say, Carl Jung and why people get interested in, say, individuation, his process, which is how do I recognize I'm walking down the street, what's my thought? Or or is it a thought in the collective or an ancestral, that ability to individuate, and recognizing, when people would always say there's no mistakes, everything's happening perfectly as it is. I would rally against that for my whole life, because I would be like, this is not my life. This is
Mm,
not where my place. And I think I think again, if the nervous system is so dysregulated, you don't even feel like you have a place in your body because you're not at home in your body.
mm,
And I think more and more that I can see the mysterious forces of synchronicity of everything that had to happen to be you. But I still know when someone used to say that to me, well, everything happened to get you to where you are today. I hated who I was today in that moment because that self-love hadn't kicked in. And I think that's this other part of it, because otherwise you think that you are, like in constellations, bigger than the forces of the divine. Like, you know how it should have gone. World War II, no, that was like, yeah, that you know more. Instead of this sense of being able to, I think, be in resonant harmony with what's going on around you, while still being able to find an individual path that allows you to flourish. And I think so many of us that have these backgrounds, it's that cliche, we don't know actually how to thrive because every day was just, do I get to survive again?
yes, absolutely. Those who were watching this, you would have seen me have a really big smile because as you said this word, you said everything that it took for you, for me to be who I am, or you to be who you are. There was something that flew across the front of your screen.
No way, I missed it.
Something. Which I see the orbs or the
Wow.
fairies or whatever you
Yeah.
want to call it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that was just like an acknowledgement.
I'll have
That's
to watch it on the replay. Wow. Okay.
that's yeah, that's fantastic. And bringing this to awareness in a language that it's going to resonate with some people that haven't heard it this way before, you
Yeah.
know? Destiny and fate. Some people might think they're the same thing. How would you describe them?
Yeah, yeah. So I would just say a simple way would to say, like, fate is the deck of cards that you get, like the hand of cards. That's your fate. But what you do with those cards is up to you.
And that's your destiny.
And that's your
Right.
destiny. Yeah,
Right.
that's your destiny. So fate is almost the stuff that I'm I'm Lithuanian. I'm of a particular height. You know, I've got particular eyes, things like that, colors. Um, Family circumstances, as I said, coming from a refugee family, that's fate. But it's not my destiny to stay with the mindset of a refugee family. You know, and part of it is how can I transform this to be my destiny? And that's a myth I work a lot with, which is the myth of Persephone. So if people watch my TEDx, they can watch the where I go into that myth, which is she has this underworld experience. She gets kidnapped and dragged into the underworld. But when we can see these rug pulling moments or this absolute despair as a necessity, that you would never get to where you need to go without it. I think that's
Mm.
the thing where you just say, my fate, it was necessary for me to become who I am. And I really like the quote, you know, around that character is destiny. And it's almost like these experiences, the fated experiences, the accidents, the losses, the wars, the traumas, almost in a sense, they're the things that actually activate this character. And then who you are out of that is how you create this destiny.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Because think
Mm.
about it, like there's no wise, compassionate person that you know that has not gone through a lot of hell to be that wise and compassionate. It's not possible. You can't, it's not something that you can like get a drink at the supermarket of that. That is direct lived experience.
Yeah,
You cannot have
absolutely.
that character that cannot be bought, like you know, go buy a t-shirt at a shop.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do we value that as well? And to be able to, in a sense, you know, we were talking about earlier about survival. It's almost like, how do I even, in my own presence, that people can feel safe around me? Because I'm not judging them or I'm not putting my own ideas, like trying to like force them kind of through that. It's almost this ability to like graciously allow space for others almost in a sense to have a softening. Because so often we come at healing like from a very left brain perspective. And what my work is really interested in now is how do we build that bridge between the left brain and the right brain? The right brain being one more, which is about emotions and music and symbols and archetypes and myths and ritual and community, rather than the left brain, which is more the logistics and the rational. And I always say, if someone, you know, with depression, it's you might go read in a magazine or see someone and they say very left brain things like either change your diet or exercise or stare at the sun, write a gratitude list, all left brain things. But when you're in a depression, you're more in the underworld and you need the right brain to be able to heal, to bring the wholeness. So go watch a film that's got a really great protagonist, like that's the hero or the heroine of the story where you identify with them because their transformation, their success, their victories will become yours because you've so identified with them. So there's a space for this Netflix and chill because it's actually the story that's healing. It becomes medicine. And to get there, it's we first need to recognize what are the stories I tell to myself about myself. Before then, I can say, what are the stories that nourish us as a humanity? Because stories can either like they hurt or they can kind of heal. And so I would advise people, you know, if I can give another, just something to be aware of is one's inner narrative and that self-dialogue. And I think that's why I was also trapped in the victim because I didn't realize the constant mental narrative that I had, that there was no space for the divine or presence or my body to even have an inch of space.
Yeah. Wow. And that potentially would be, as you said, from that ancestral trauma, just moving in your cells and being there, resonating and yeah, and you were the one in the family that is able to look at this on your level for
Yeah.
yourself and then for the collective, right?
Yeah. And I do feel this just depends on people's lens, but I personally believe in reincarnation. So it's to see that there's a larger perspective playing out. And I would also say maybe people might not hold that view. I could then say with the myths that basically why the myths are so powerful and are the most important in a way storyline or narrative of life is because they really display the human experience. There's jealousy, there's envy, there's betrayal, there's very human things that are there. But they show us that we're not alone. And so often when we're going through something, it's like I'm the only one that's experienced this. But then you might be, I don't know, Odysseus in the Odyssey, lost at sea, feeling that. But then you're going, oh no, there's a greater a myth. There's almost like a psychological cradle that the myth becomes, that it can carry you, because I'm not lost at sea. It's actually a pattern. And that's why, and I'm one of the writers for the Joseph Campbell Foundation, as people would know, like that hero's journey. It's like when you're in the belly of the whale. It's in that really the darkest deeps pits of depression to be able to go, oh, okay, this is a necessity. I have to atone, say here, or there's something, there's almost in a sense, it's not like that everything has a reason in that cliched kind of way, but it's almost like the necessity for the next part of the process to occur. And
Yeah.
we all just want to go from 0 to 100, or everything's Amazon Prime download speed. Instead of actually, it's almost like I think so much operates more on a divine timing, because it has to almost, in a sense, again, be integrated for you to live out of a different perspective. So it's not like you can't have it all in and if you look at, say, people that do, say, ayahuasca or mushrooms or something, so often they might get this wisdom, but Carl Jung would say, beware of unearned wisdom. You crossed a threshold that you didn't almost get there of your own making. And so beware
Mm.
of that. That's not actually the true wisdom. And so I think there's almost this, if we want to look at it, the evolution of how we've healed in our own personal lives, where retrospectively, oh, this had to happen for then to that happen. It's that tapestry. You can only make sense of the pattern of it reading backwards, but you can only make sense of it moving forward in trust.
Yeah, yeah. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Tell me a little bit more about your archetypal readings that you offer.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, people come for a variety of different reasons. So for some people, it's very something specific, which is got either an issue with a family member or something at work, or something that I always kind of say it's like when your left brain has run out of ways of dealing with something, like how do I peer underneath the hood of the psyche of what's going on? So someone might have a constellation at that point as well. So it's like, say if someone came with an issue to, say, a typical counselor, they can only talk about what they already know or what's already in the space. But I work with an archetypal wheel of 12 archetypes, sometimes the four that I mentioned, the survival, and eight others, or sometimes just 12. But it's being able to, in a way, bring forces that have not yet been seen to conscious awareness. So a card might come out, like it might be the trickster or the engineer or the magical child, and all of a sudden the person's never referenced any of them in their awareness, and they're like, oh, that makes sense, because either my dad was an engineer, or I used to, magical child, have really these amazing daydreams and imagined other worlds when I was a kid. And so you're working with, in a way, what people have references or associations kind of with into the space. And so in a way, you're not now being run by these like forces, they're not in the unconscious or the subconscious. It's almost like they're now in the corner of your eye, and you can have a conscious relationship with them. And the other way that I work with the 12 is with the astrological houses. I always say people don't need to know much about the astrology, other than that there's 12 houses and they are different from your first house, say identities, seventh house relationships, 10th highest potential, 11th, your interaction with the world. Because say someone, really displays a strong pattern of a shaman or a healer, well, it's very different from how you are at home as a healer to in your spirituality, into self-expression, to the unconscious, right? So if we look at archetypes as like an actor, and the houses as more like the theater stage, how they're actually operating. And we just spend time going through these 12 forces, and whether people are in conscious relationship with them or not, if they're in the shadow or in the light. And part of it is, again, there's the awareness, but then there's this part of it where the I guess in a way the real magic almost happens where it's almost the alchemy of I've gone, like Jung would say, from the nigredo, from the darkness of the pattern to that I can almost allow it to be there with the light. I'm not choosing one or the other, but there's almost this it's like you can be like with family constellations, we hear some really heinous things. You can be close to evil, but you're not consumed by it. I can touch all these things, but they don't have to become me because I'm not identifying with them. They're just patterns, and a pattern can be activated or deactivated. And so it's just bringing, again, more of the awareness and the capacity for the choosing function. And again, choice in the present moment, not, I wish I did this yesterday when this situation kind of came up, but when it comes up in the moment and that the body actually feels safe enough. And I really feel that all change, it really does belong or start with at the identity level. So if we look at, say, the victim, like one way to start moving out of that is to be able to have a sense of victory because you haven't felt it for so long. And that's why the US, there's all those, memes or it's the reality of it where people, the Navy SEALs say, make my bed every morning, right? Because that's a victory. Then you'd go for a jog or all the sense, like you build up this sense where I know what that feeling victorious feels in my body. And it's almost like doing the like arm pumping, the fist pumping and things like that because it hasn't been felt for so long, that force. Um, and it also allows us to recognize that we tap into more the capital S self rather the lower S self because say we're struggling with an issue, you just put on a different archetypal cloak. How would the shaman meet this issue? How would the queen meet this kind of issue? How would the environmentalist? All of a sudden, I've got different ways of moving in the world because I was just trapped in my habituated identity. So it's because say you're really stressed in a supermarket queue or something, and I don't remember when I was like this, and you're counting numbers in people's baskets, and you're like, you don't have seven or less, you shouldn't be in this like faster lane or whatever, and can get really into this state. But if you're like, oh, what would the Dalai Lama do in this moment? And all of a sudden you just relax, like there's no effort because you've taken on that identity. Because it's like with the Dalai Lama, like you don't need to read his books on compassion. His very presence is compassion. And I feel what's happening at the moment, all of us have in a way read the same books. We've all read The Power of Now. We've all, but it's like, do I live? Is my life an embodiment of the greatest truth that I've been exposed to? So am I embodying all the teachings that I've been exposed to? That's it, the embodyings, the presence, so people would see it. So it just kind of shows us if I was looking, if was struggling with something, or say I'm in the underworld, you know, if I was the knight in shining armor, or if I was the orphan child, I would be spending that time in the underworld very differently according to those archetypal patterns and that they are there and available, these forces for us to consciously work with, is what I'd want to say.
Can you explain to those who don't know the term, what does the underworld mean?
Yeah, so for me, I would say it's some people would, it's almost like everything that's unknown about yourself and the world, where upper world would be I know how I go to work. I know my partner. I know what I like to eat and things like that. But then we sometimes have experiences where I can't find my bearings anywhere. I used to be really happy doing this job or being in this relationship, but now I don't know what I feel. I don't have that same love, or I don't have that same motivation. And it's like it's almost like a reordering of where your center of gravity kind of is, that you can't navigate through the usual touch points.
Okay.
And so some people would say it would be like it would feel like either it could be feel a depression or unknown or an uncertainty, but again, it's almost it appears almost in our lives. It is actually a literal, if we look at it in mythological terms, it's a place. It's called
Mhm.
Hades. And so the terrain is the underworld, And within that, there's like Tartarus, which is like there's a character there who's he's so thirsty, but the water comes to his lips, but he can never take it. There's fruit that's dangling near his mouth, but he kind of can't eat it. So being stuck in that kind of state. And there's Chiron there, the crossing the ferry, it's a whole world that exists. There's maps of it that you can even look at online. But then there's also like Hades, which is also the god of the underworld, and as a character, as a personification of this feeling, where you almost have to meet, we could even say, for those that know the Star Wars reference, like Darth Vader, and recognize that, oh,
Yeah.
that's me. So really to go do
So
this
like so meeting that
shadow
shadow.
work and a
Yeah.
lot of reckoning of either our pride, or we often get taken down there to really reassess our ways of operating in the upper world that are no longer serving us. Yeah. But again, watch my TEDx and I'll go through it there in more detail.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll share that link
Mm.
in the details as well with this
But I
thing
would
called
also say it's sometimes more that people just have sometimes an existential crisis. Like, like at the moment, there's so much going on in the world, right? And people might say something like, the world just feels off. I can't
Mm.
quite put my finger on it. And some
Mm.
people might say pre-2019 or 2008, whatever it was. But there's something off in the world, and almost just, I don't yet know how to be in it, but there's this unease there that we're almost like the everything that was once known now is not is because like who would have thought that a president, or when we say like a rapist is now a president that is now invading a country, Venezuela, and taking it. So like it's almost like this sense, there's just so much in that sense of this, can this really be real? That sometimes people just go, and let alone everything that's happening with the environment and the amount of animals that are becoming extinct. There's almost this like, I just don't know. And also a crisis of meaning, which is brought in with AI, which
Mm.
is like, where will we find our meaning? So it's a meaning crisis that so many people are going through too.
Huge shifts and things to navigate in the world. I mean, there always is, right? Over time, there's things
Yeah.
evolve, but I think there seems to be like just quantifiably so much more going on because the faster we get, the more there is. And then we don't take time to integrate because it's the next one, it's the next thing.
Yeah.
And then it becomes this real overwhelm um,
Yeah.
of everything. Yeah.
And that ability, and even with healing, like there's so many modalities out there. Give me more, give me more, give me more, like that hunger for it, right? But we don't know how to digest and assimilate,
Mm.
each almost in a sense, each book or each workshop or things. And that's the thing now with, say, TikTok and Instagram. You can scroll and get all this great like wisdom. But it's bite-sized and it wasn't actually out of your own direct lived experience. So you're getting full of, in a way, information, data, information, and knowledge, but it's not wisdom because it wasn't digested and assimilated and coming out of you as a direct lived experience. But then you have this mental awareness of, I know I'm freaking out in this dating experience because it's anxious attachment. So you'll know all about it, but your body doesn't know. And that's the thing
Mm.
where psychosis comes from. It's like when the lived experience and the mental, like that, they just become two greater paths, like they just become more and more extreme. So it's the knowingness versus actually the lived experience. And again, we're in an attention deficit culture. And again, where is things that can ground us, like ritual, which community. And I also think healing, we're past the day and age, I think, of individual healing. I think it's much more about collective healing, systemic.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's why I think so many of us have had our dark nights of the soul. Another word for the underworld, for those, if I didn't explain it well enough there before, it's a dark night of the soul, where you just question everything. And so many of us have been through our dark night of the soul experience to be able to help others, and almost as the planet is now having its own dark night of the soul experience.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And there are so many different like you said, the different names for it and the
Yeah.
understandings and the awarenesses um and it's fascinating myself, like when I first met you, like 7 or 8 years ago,
Yeah,
and then
wow now.
learning about,
Yeah.
yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it? Um, and then the whole concept of learning archetypal. Okay, right, because I met you at the intensive in Australia in Sydney many years ago, and then we had one of those times was you were rooming with Fiona, and so
Yeah,
got to know you even more, and you were presenting at that one as well. So you melded, I think, at that time some constellations with your archetypal
I
work.
did. I did. So one was actually getting people to, I did one that was on myths and one that was on archetypes. So it was actually being able to have people to stand in the place of some of these like Greek gods that of the pantheon, right? So represent Zeus. Represent like Aphrodite slash Venus, like what would it actually feel like? And all of a sudden, people just start feeling their divine attributes
Yeah.
and that you can represent and to feel that in your own body. And again, it's that felt experience. So it's not about studying the myths and all the Greek gods and goddesses as something out there. No, they're actually in us. And also, I mean, for me, when I now view a constellation, I'm looking to work with some constellators to do this. But for me, I'm seeing the archetypes that are there and the myths that are going along with it. So, especially, I can see so often the orphan child.
Mm.
And in myth, like so many of us, we feel orphaned, not literally, but from our family of origin because we're so different, or the black sheep, or whatever it is. But to recognize that in myth, the orphan child is always the one that has the magic. And it's necessary to have not had that belonging for their magical powers to be developed. And again, we start recognizing the necessity of that, or being able to see stories and myths. I see them play out in constellations quite a lot. But again, to be able to then understand in a constellation if where archetypally someone is, or where they are in their identity, or that they're in a myth. So for myself, again, that experience of not belonging at school, it's also that ugly duckling. Most of us know the story of the ugly duckling. People might
Yeah.
treat you like a swan, but your own inner image is still of that ugly duckling. And the wounding that goes along with that of never finding your place. So it's another way to perceive also what constellations are showing us. And I think you can,
Fantastic.
yeah, and you can see it as well, like in the damsel in distress, like the Cinderella waiting to be rescued by the prince. And we can also be that, like waiting to be rescued by the constellation, instead of
Mm.
how do I be my own knight in shining armor?
Exactly. Be that for yourself, isn't it?
Yeah, be the answer to not just somebody, to the prayers, that your prayers to somebody else's prayers, and walk around the world like your prayers are answered. Like that's the
I
thing.
love what you said before about, like what would the Dalai Lama do in this moment?
Yeah,
Or whoever it is that I say to my students, just ask the question, what would Tracy do right now? Like when I'm teaching them constellations and they might be doing a constellation and they're stuck. Well, what would Tracy do right now? What would
yeah.
Bert Hellinger do right now? Take a breath,
Yeah,
you
I was
know.
about to take a breath. Yeah, yeah. Say you're
So
struggling with motivation. Like, I don't know, what would Tony Robbins say? What would like Oprah say? Like almost all I always find when I feel for me, I'm almost like I'm obviously the age I am and grew up in Australia with Princess Diana on the front covers. I'm sometimes when I feel really nervous in a situation, like how would Princess Diana act? And all of a sudden this like regal grace will just descend on you.
we'll have to try that.
Yeah, so just know that these forces are there to be able to, in a way, allow you to embody a different way of being because everything comes out of our state. It comes first, from our state of being, then the action, and that's that frequency. And to be able to, in a way, I don't mean this in the new agey kind of way, but that to be able to, when we play with these archetypes and forces and identities and myths, we're just like really calibrating different frequencies. And it's like a beautiful piano. We've got now the whole scale, the whole however many keys are there that we can play them. We're not just stuck in this one note. Like I was stuck in the one note of the victim,
Mm.
right? But now all of a sudden there's all these different notes that I can play, different frequencies, different ways of perceiving that I can now embody. I don't have to just stay stuck in one limited, habituated, we might say the old version of ourselves or a past identity. It's almost I have the capacity to choose. So will I now
Yeah.
choose this next moment to meet it with enthusiasm, right? That could be like and be enthusiasm, or might be inspiration or imagination. There's so many different ways now. And that's when you start feeling more like a co-creator.
Yeah.
And then you want to inspire that in others to recognize they also have this co-creative facility, and it's always happening every single moment because the past and the present and the future, they're all interconnected.
Yeah. You were saying that earlier on. You said that, like the past, the present, and the future. It's all now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just love the way you're framing this. And yeah, again, this might not resonate with everyone because they
Yeah.
might not understand the whole archetypal thing, and it might not be something you're interested in. But for those, yeah, I can see light bulbs going off all over the place for people that are listening to this, and pennies dropping, like, oh, this is what I can do. This is oh, all right, this is, yeah, um I felt like a hero in that moment. I had my hero archetype. Oh, right. Okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Victim. Yeah. I get that. Yeah. That's when I'm in that
And it
archetype.
even could be just simply, I don't know, you've got the friend, like I know that everyone says Jessica all the time, but you got a friend, Jessica, and she's competent in something that you're not competent in. I don't know, maybe she can, file taxes really well. It's like, well, how would Jessica like deal with this like mountain of emails or whatever it is in front of me? It doesn't always have to be, uh, like a mythological figure, but some people might go, oh, this is a destruction like Kali, like the goddess Kali.
Mm. Yeah.
And yeah, and then all of a sudden it's being able to feel into that. And I think again, it's the world, it's a feeling universe. And I think for those of us with trauma, we've so in our heads because it's trying to make everything safe, right? Through, hypervigilance and planning and all the rest of it. But when we can almost say if it's a feeling and a frequency, that is almost in a sense how the universe operates. And our greatest experience of time, or the trueness of time, is synchronicity. We start recognizing the importance of the how am I showing up in the moment, in what frequency, in what archetype, in what pattern.
So how does time traveler fit into that?
I think that there's again we can be in the now, and we could close our eyes. And I was just recently last year in Delphi in Greece at the Oracle of Delphi, and feel like I could be back in the Oracle of Delphi in those times, but still be here in the moment. And I think it's also to recognize so often, if I think about my own situation, it's the past and my family was something very fixed rather than something that was fluid that could shift in regards to my perception and my relationship of what occurred in the
Mm.
past.
Mm.
So there's almost just that capacity that and we can imagine maybe we've got a date coming up on the weekend. We can imagine how that date would go. And there's so many options of which way it would go, but to be able to just hold that there's so many potentialities,
Mm.
and which one am I going to align with?
I sometimes work with the time traveler as far as, okay, if I'm stuck on something and I tap into that part of myself that's like, it's already done it.
Yeah.
I need some help here. You've already done this. Yeah, be in that part.
Yeah, act from the position like it's already been done, or like the thing that's blocking you. Okay, I've gotten over it. What is the thing that like you've already passed it? So what's the next thing that you do? You just kind of solve it. So I
Mm.
think that there is something of we could even say, because the year's just started, like the 2026 version of yourself. That's very different to the 2025 version of yourself. Maybe the
Mm.
2026 version of yourself just gets up half an hour early,
Yeah,
and that's already a shift.
yeah. Wow, this is fascinating. We could talk for
Yeah.
eons, right? Eons. There's so
And just
much to
say
dive
that
into
there's,
that.
I hope people just get the sense that because I felt powerless for so, so long in my life, and hopeless, and just it was just hell. And just like almost like I'm about to turn 49, and I would say I lived 48 and a half of those years in a hellish underworld to now just be coming out to the light that it's not now that I see, which is my perspective before I wasted my life or and made all these mistakes and all the rest of it, that almost I now am in what would kind of be that cliche of it is a new day and how will I be in it? And almost that I have the ability to not direct the external circumstances, but how I feel inside, so that I feel safe in my own way, just through connecting through my breath. That almost in a sense I can cherish myself through, in a way, the way that I'm thinking and feeling and acting and feeling and behaving. It's not so dependent that things have to go my way. I've got to get all the green lights going on the way to town. That even if it's red light, red light, red light, I still actually am the one that has held onto a frequency that feels safe and freeing and loving inside of myself. So I'm no longer dictated by external circumstances, and you'll start feeling more of a creator in your life, and untold beautiful blessings will start just falling on your head.
Way, I'm going to celebrate that. Yeah, arms up. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, Victoria, yeah.
That is fantastic.
I get to have breakfast. I get to move my body. I get to sleep. I get to have a friend. I get to like all, wow, I get to have these things. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
There's
just a beautiful way to be in the world.
Oh, you're amazing. You're
Oh,
amazing.
likewise.
Thank you so much for sharing. And we're kind of coming to the end of our time here, but for those who I'm going to put it in the thread, but for those who are audible, can you just share your contact details so they can get in touch with you if they'd like a reading or
Sure.
something
My
else?
website is horribly out of date. So I kind of say Instagram or YouTube. So on Instagram, it's Kristina, surname Dryza. And you can just find my name also on YouTube or on LinkedIn. And if you wanted a reading, just message me for a reading. I can go more into cost, process, time, things like that. But otherwise, I do like putting content out in regards to just short little snippets of archetypal mythic wisdom, a minute or so, little reels that people might enjoy too.
Yeah, they're great. Highly recommend them. Highly recommend.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Kristina. It's been a pleasure. Like I say, we could just chat for
We could.
eons. It's just so good. So good.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah.
All right. Well, much love to all your viewers and listeners. And gosh, all I can say is please, if I look at it archetypally with Pandora, hope is always, it never leaves you. But almost once you realize that you are the answer to your own prayer, then you become the answer to others' prayers, to the planet's prayers, to the gods and the goddesses' prayers, and you will move through the world like a soul empowered.
Wow, not a true word has been said. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Head over to Instagram and tell me what's resonated for you with this episode. You'll find me at tracy.cartwright. That's Tracy with no E, .cartwright. Or head over to my website, tracycartwright.co.nz, and receive a free audio with the gift from your ancestors. So until next time, be kind to yourself and have fun doing it.